welcome to yet another edition of ET Now Hangouts with me, Ankita Saxena. Well, I'm back with yet another exciting episode of meaningful conversations from influencers, latest trends and what's hot in the market. Well, today I'm in conversation with an entrepreneur, best-selling author, online educator and one of India's topmost content creators. Well, this man wears many hats and speaks about everything under the sun, from finance to content creation to lifestyle. Well, I'm in conversation with Ankur Warikoo. Ankur, many thanks for joining us on ET Now Hangouts. So good to have you on the show. Really wish you were here in the studio, but nonetheless, Ankur, thank you so much for joining us. Well, Ankur, you speak about varied topics, but to begin with, I'll take a leaf from your own life. You wanted to be a scientist, and then eventually that did not happen, that did not work out for you, and then you started out on your entrepreneurial journey with secondshadi.com, gadi.com, there was Groupon, and then Nearby, at a time when they did not have a startup culture back in 2009. What have been your biggest lessons from all these businesses, that could help our young entrepreneurs watching our show today?
That's a great start to the conversation, Ankita. Firstly, thank you for having me. In the last 15 odd years of running startups, I think the lessons have changed as times have changed, but there's one particular lesson that has not, and the more I reflect upon it, the more I realize that that is perhaps the only stationary object in the ever fast-changing world of entrepreneurship. And that is, there is only one person you're accountable to. Only one person. It's not you. It's not your investors. It's not your employees. It's your customer. And your customer will constantly keep telling you what they want. The best thing about being a customer is that they're very vocal about their needs. They're very vocal about their desires. They love to give feedback. But the ego of the founder, the product that they've built, thinking that that would work, all of that gets into the way and they stop listening. And every single time that I have gone back to those basics, had a conversation with my customers, asked them with an objective point of view of what is it that you would love, forget what we have built for you, forget how well it's doing or not. Just tell us what is it that you want, and then we will design something that works for you. It's worked. But every single time I've shut myself to say, no, I've built this, I know myself better. It's that Steve Jobs thing that if we asked people whether they want the iPhone, nobody would have said yes. We glamorize that, but there is a method to that madness that we rarely introspect upon. And I feel that the biggest lesson that I can give to any founder who's willing to start is always keep your ears and eyes open to what customers are telling you, because they're always telling you something.
Right, Ankur, that reminds me of what David Ogilvy once said, that, the consumer is not a moron, she's your wife. So you never really insult her intelligence. And, that brings me to my next question. What are the big don'ts for a young startup founder?
One is don't fall in love with your idea. Don't fall in love with the solution that you come up with. Love the problem statement. Solutions will keep changing as technology changes, as the world changes, as customer preferences changes, but the problem will almost always remain the same. For example, people love to feel good about themselves. They love to feel good about themselves. So if any business is built centered around this theme of making people feel good about themselves, you are most likely going to do well. Now, the form and mechanism of that will keep changing. It may be luxury goods in the past. It may be today how they come up with content on Instagram or some other platform. Tomorrow, it could be the car that they drive or the degree that they have or the places they visit, what have you. They want to feel good about themselves. And that's most important. So that's number one. Don't fall in love with the solution, fall in love with the problem. Number two, don't glamorize. And I mean this with absolute respect. I am a product of the entrepreneurial ecosystem in this country. So it'll be hypocritical of me to even suggest that this should not be how the country executes its entrepreneurial ecosystem. But I have a slight, I don't even know what the right word is, but let me call it, I have a slight angst against the ecosystem right now. It's tending to celebrate fundraising a lot more than the actual outcome of the business. When you have mega productions, when you have conversations in media, almost all of them around this startup has raised this much money, this startup has become a unicorn, this startup is valued at this much, but very rarely a conversation around this is the profit that they're making, this is the revenue growth that they have, this is how much they are bleeding or making every single month, then it tends to give a very wrong picture. So please celebrate it, but don't think it's success. Success is only when your customer is willing to pull out money from their wallet, give it to you for the product and service that you've built, and does so repeatedly. That's the only outcome you eventually want, and that's your responsibility. So don't fall in love with the glamour, fall in love with the grind. And the final thing is, don't disregard culture and team building to some other day when things are okay. A lot of founders that I speak to were like, culture is something we'll focus on when we have the product market fit, or culture is what we will focus on when we are big enough. No, you have to think of it from day one, because your culture ultimately will define how you pull through tough times.
Right. Speaking of young entrepreneurs, Ankur, more and more millennials want to retire at an early age because, perhaps they want to start up early, perhaps even at the age of 40. How should someone in their 20s plan their finances, if they wish to retire at 40? Now, whether it is to start up early or just travel the world or just start creating content or just retire at the age of 40. How do you make sure that your money is working harder than you do?
That's a great question. And I'm glad you asked the last part of the question. How do you make sure that your money is working harder than you? Because a lot of people think that retirement is either of these two things. It's the age of 60, which is like, oh, I've done my bit and now I've retired and I don't have anything to look forward to and I'm just going to enjoy my old age. Or retirement is that I'm going to stop working because I'm just so done with it. No, that's not my definition of retirement. My definition of retirement is very simple. You get to a point where you don't have to work for money. That whatever you have built as a corpus is generating enough returns that takes care of your annual living expenses. So you don't have to wake up any day to work for money. Now, that doesn't mean that you stop working. It means you can now choose to work whatever you want to do, however way you want to do it, for however long you want to do it, wherever you want to do it. It becomes your choice. You're not at the mercy of somebody else. Now, how do you get to that point? And I'm glad that you use retirement at 40 and not 30. I get a lot of emails which are like, oh, I'm 22 and I want to become a billionaire by 25. I don't know what you're reading, but whatever you're reading, you shouldn't be reading that. You have to give it time. There are two beautiful things at work. One is the power of compounding. It is insane, but it is true. Simple. If your money were to grow between 12 to 15% annually every year, that doesn't mean it has to grow by that percent every year, but back calculated, that's the average with which it grew, then your money is going to double, give or take, every 5 years. And that means by 20 years, you will be 16 times your money. 16 times your money. So whatever money you started with, you will be 16 times plus all the money that you would have put in for those 20 years as well. So if you start investing early, you draw the most benefit of compounding. And I believe we are entering, in my opinion, the golden era of what this country has to offer from an economic wealth creation perspective. The next 10, 20, 30 years, people will not have to work nearly as hard as our parents had to make money, because there are markets that are working in our favor. The world is looking at India as a mega powerhouse. We have enough infrastructure and capability to make things happen. And if you were to just simply invest in a passive mutual fund and just park your money there, you will make returns. You don't have to be greedy. You certainly don't have to be impatient. So give it time. But two, you have to be consistent as well. And what I mean by consistency is not that you put some money and then you're like, okay, when I get the next bonus, then I'll put some more. No, every single month, just as you pay your EMIs to a bank for the loan that you've taken, you pay the EMI to your future self. Whosoever that person you want to be, you owe it to that person at the age of 40 to be paying a EMI for. So pay that EMI. Don't negotiate on that. So every single month, the same day, clinically, you have an SIP started, and you do that for 20 years. I guarantee you that if you were to start, irrespective of the amount you start, and you were to then slowly every year increase that SIP amount, because your income is increasing, your ability to spend more and invest more is increasing, you are going to become a crorepati sooner than you imagine it to be. At 15%, in just 20 years, you will have more than a crore rupees in your bank account.
Right, Ankur, this reminds me of what Warren Buffett said, that nobody wants to really get rich slow. But for a young audience, obviously there is no way of getting rich fast. But for a young audience, which are your preferred asset classes? Because the risk appetite for a younger person is greater than for, say, an older person. Or firstly, do you even believe that is the case? Or do you believe that the risk appetite is more a function of the end goal?
So I do believe, at a generalized statement, Ankita, when you're young, you have the power of time. Now, what does it give you? It gives you the time to recover from anything that doesn't go your way. That's the beauty of it. So if you were to say, take a risky bet, not just with money, let's say you take a risky bet with your career, you take a risky bet with your education, maybe even your relationships, and for whatever reason they don't work out, you have time left to recover from that. But if you were to take that risk at the age of 40, you perhaps don't have that time, or nearly not as much as you had in your 20s. That's the power of starting early. In your 20s, you have that ability to take a risk, but you beautifully put it, Ankita, everybody has a different relationship with money. It's personal finance for a reason. It's personal. So if you invest all your money in FD, you know what? Great, good for you, because you have stability, you have fixed returns, you don't have to worry about the ups and downs of the stock market, and it will give you what it promises conclusively. However, 10 years out, 20 years out, if you're looking at somebody who invested in the stock market and feel, oh my God, why did I do that? You don't get to ask that question anymore. You unfortunately lost that right to, because you chose what was meaningful for you at that point of time, and somebody else chose something which was meaningful for them, and the outcomes will be different. So please take risks in your 20s because you have the time to do so.
Right, Ankur, let's talk about social media influencing then. The one thing that the young do very well is social media, and every second person really wants to become an influencer or have some sort of an opinion on social media. Now, you're someone who is respected for their content on social media. How does a young influencer who's just started out earn credibility as a content creator? Well, unless you are an expert in the field, say if you are a doctor talking about health, how do I believe you? How do you gain credibility? How does one go about making their content more reliable?
Sure, that's a great question, and I feel the answer lies in what is it that you're going to rely on to create that content. At the age of 43, I rely a lot on my experiences. And that's not because I'm smart or I'm hardworking or I have something unique that you don't have. It's just that I've lived life longer, so I have more experiences and I'm comfortable sharing them. So I rely a lot on my life and its journey to create my content. But somebody who's, say, 22, 20, 19, what do they rely on? Because they don't have nearly as much experiences. And even if they do, they don't know whether that will strike a chord with people. And there, my instant suggestion will be, don't rely as much on your experiences to create, rely on curation to create. If you were to curate, and that means sit down, pick a theme or a niche, whatever is it that you're passionate about. It could be business stories, it could be famous personalities, it could be the failures of people. And you were to then, as a researcher, curate the finest content out there, the best stories that you can kill to find, and then deliver them in a fashion that's consumable, you build credibility. Not as somebody who has experienced them firsthand, not as somebody that people can look up to as the creator of that, but as a curator of that. And that is great credibility to start with. If you have the knack, of course, to create, because you have the gift of the gab, you have something that maybe can make things funny or musical or lyrical or whatnot, please do that. But if you don't feel disheartened that you can't create or become an influencer or a content creator. You can, because there are far more curators out there than creators.
Right. So, Ankur, somebody who's young, who's watching this and wants a career in content creation, what would be your advice, and also how do you go about monetizing it? How do you make money as a content creator?
If I were to advise a 20-year-old towards content creation, I'd say pick up a job, and whatever time you then get, your nights, your weekends, your holidays, spend it on content creation. And what are the ways of monetizing? You could turn on ads. So YouTube allows you to run ads on your channel, and they then pay you for every ad revenue that you earn for YouTube. You could turn on affiliate marketing, which is you share links of brands that will pay you for sales that happen on their websites if people were to click through your link. You can do brand collaborations, so people will love you for the niche audience that you've created, for the kind of content that you create, and they would be like, would you mind endorsing our product or our service, and we'll pay you either in kind or in cash, and that will become a mechanism. You could create your own IP, your own courses, your own merchandise, your own books, whatnot, because you now have a distribution. It's endless once you have the attention and the trust of people who look up to you for your content.
Well, Ankur, that's great advice for our young audience, whether they want to start up or become content creators. Success and money both come with time, and there's nothing as fast success or fast money. But on that note, we are going to play a quick rapid fire round with you. Are you ready for it?
Sure, I am.
Well, first up, one investment advice you wish you knew in your 20s.
If you don't ask, the answer is always no. I was always hesitant to ask, and I wish I had the courage to ask, because this motto has served me so well when I got to know of it.
One investment disaster.
Oh, my first investment at the age of 29, I got some little bit of money and I bought a real estate property, taking a bank loan. Oh my God, it was such a disaster, because even when we sold it after 7 years at a marked up price, taking into account the interest on the loan and the registration charges and brokerage fee and blah, 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 we made lesser returns than what we would have if we put it all in on fixed deposit.
Cryptocurrency, yay or nay?
I am long on crypto, and I do believe that blockchain is a technology that the world will adopt in meaningful fashion.
Startup founder, content creator?
Any day. I identify myself as an entrepreneur more than anything else.
One nasty troll that you still remember?
I remember one, which was an email that I got at some 4 in the morning, because it had the timestamp on it. It was filled with expletives. It was the choicest of words that one can throw at somebody, and all for the fact that this person was irritated by my ads and the frequency of ads whenever he went on YouTube. And I was like, you could skip them, dude. Like, how do you get to a point where you're using all of this for a stranger just for ads?
Ashneer Grover, comment.
No reaction. I've never met him. We don't know each other. I have no idea what is happening. So when I get asked this question, I'm always in a speculative mode. And then I'm like, I don't have to speculate, because I'm not the one who initiated anything. So I really do not have any reaction. I do not know of him. I know of him, but I do not know him personally, so I have no comments.
And finally, your favorite Indian startup founder?
That's an easy one, the Kamath brothers. Any day, the Kamath brothers. I love what they've done with Zerodha.
Well, on that note, Ankur, thank you so much for joining us. We had a very insightful conversation with you. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ankita. All the best.